Want to know one of the most common and damaging mistakes that I see among healthcare cash-based practice owners? It's not tracking, managing, and making decisions based on specific key performance indicators or KPIs. And in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly the KPIs that I track in my successful cash-based practice and that I have all my practice owner clients track in theirs as well. And most importantly, how those will guide your decisions and the training of your staff to make sure that you are optimizing your private practice for great profits and for great results. Welcome to today's episode. My name is Jared Carter. I'm a physical therapist, a cash-based practice owner, and the creator of the Private Pay Profit Formula. I help providers just like you to create your own cash-based out-of-network or concierge practice so that you can end reliance on greedy insurance companies, provide a level of care you are ultimately proud of, and reclaim your profits and your future. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing because I put trainings like this out all the time and they always have a free resource associated with them designed to help you get results faster. And this episode's free resource is my cash-based practice weekly staff meeting template. It basically is going to outline all of the things that I go through and check the checklist for my staff meetings in my practice and many other successful cash-based practices out there. The things you need to make sure you're going through every single week with your staff to make sure that everyone's on board and that your practice is moving in the direction that you want it to. And you can download that at drjaredcarter.com/episode 27. All right, let's dig in. Now, in this episode, I'm going to go through the KPIs that I track generally. Usually we're looking at these weekly. Some of them are at least quarterly, sometimes monthly, but these are our overall KPIs that we make sure that we're paying attention to. In the next episode, I'm going to be running through which of these we utilize in our staff meetings and also how I utilize those in each staff meeting to trigger trainings of my staff when things are falling off of certain benchmarks and minimum requirements when it comes to each individual KPI. First KPI we look at is visits per week. Each week I'm looking at the total number of visits that we had. Generally these are hour-long visits. Sometimes we have half-hour visits as well. But we calculate the total number of hours of visits that we had. And then I have my admin also calculate the percentage that was of our full schedule, our full availability. And we do that for each individual provider because sometimes it can be quite different from one to the next. We also make a special note of how many new patients we had as a practice and for each provider. And that's important because with that number, I can reverse engineer if I'm going to end up having some slower weeks in the future or some really overbooked weeks. And what I mean by that is I can calculate that we need a certain number of new patients per week to stay generally fully booked. And that comes down to knowing what is your average plan of care length, which in my practice is about 5 visits. So I know that if I take the total number of spaces available each week and I divide it by 5, that gives me the number of new patients that I need each week to remain fairly fully booked. And so sometimes we'll have a really fully booked week, but we'll just have maybe we're 2 or 3 or 4 new patients short of that number that we've calculated. And I'll say, okay, well, yeah, we're fully booked now, but if we have a couple weeks like that where we're under our goal number of new patients, then I know that's going to show up as slower weeks about 4 to 6 weeks down the road. So that's why we track that KPI and why we use it in that way to kind of canary in the coal mine, if you will. And it's something that not a lot of practice owners know about or use. So make sure you put that in your arsenal, start tracking it and figuring those numbers out. Next, we have our cancel and no-show rate, actually separate. We look at cancellations that didn't reschedule. And then we also look at those who didn't show up for their first visit. We don't really look at no-show rates beyond the first visit because they actually rarely ever happen, that someone just doesn't show up once they're an established client. So in my practice, it's cancel rate, no-show rate. In the next video, I'm going to tell you exactly how we use those and how that kind of cues me in to maybe talk to a certain provider about what they're saying at the end or during each session, etc. And as far as no-shows for that first visit go, then that also cues me into maybe going back and listening to an initial conversation of someone who didn't show up so I can give proper training to my administrator. Okay, next, a related KPI is drop-off rate. So something that we do see in the clinic, hopefully not too often, but we see people who aren't at 100% or ready for discharge or ready to move into a maintenance program, and they are not booked for another visit. And so we have that to look at each week, and we say, all right, where are these folks at? Do we need to get them back on schedule? Why did they drop off, et cetera? And we can kind of dig in and figure out if there's any remediation or training that needs to happen around that. Next, we have online reviews, requested and acquired. So we have a benchmark that everyone is supposed to request at least one review each week, right? And then we want to also know that that's leading to at least one new review per provider per every 2 weeks. So if we can kind of get 50% of the people that we ask to actually follow through and give the review, I think we're doing pretty good. And if we're asking regularly, that's the way that you get dozens and dozens of new reviews every year. And within a few years, you can be in the 3 digits easily of 5-star reviews. Super, super powerful for bringing in new patients to your practice. And finally, we have lead or referral tracking, the different types of referrals. We don't just have kind of like a total leads or a total referrals number. We want to break it down. We want to say, who are our professional referrals? Any kind of other healthcare providers. In our case, it's a physical therapy clinic. Maybe it's Pilates instructors, personal trainers, etc. But those who are other professionals, related professionals, sending us direct referrals. Next, we look at word of mouth referrals, any past or current clients that have sent somebody in their life to see us. Then we have any online leads generated either organically through our website inquiry forms or our contact page. And then also, if we have paid advertising going at the time, then we look at that number as well. And then sometimes you get referrals that don't fall into any of those categories, or you get leads that come in from other areas, and so we kind of have an other category for that as well. And this is important to look at on an ongoing basis, but also quarterly and annually. It lets you know who you need to follow up with that you haven't been in contact with, but who has been a good referral maybe in the past, but not so much lately. And then also maybe gifts for patients that are really great word of mouth referrals, not on a per patient basis. That's generally unethical and in some cases illegal. But giving some sort of a recognition, thank you card, something to those who are really sending a lot of patients can go a long way. And if you're not tracking those things, then you're probably not going to know who to send to, and people slip through the cracks and maybe not stay such strong referrals for the long term. So that is a short list of the KPIs that we make sure we track. There are certainly a few other components and logistics in the business that we can put data to and put numbers to that we do keep an eye on. But those are the ones that I wanted to pass along here today to any current or future healthcare practice owner, especially cash-based practice owner, to make sure you're looking at, to manage, and let those things guide your decisions on where you need to be stronger, where you need to work, where you need to train your staff, as well as where you're really doing well. And again, you can get our free resource for this episode, which is my cash-based practice staff weekly meeting template. Get that to make sure you're looking at and covering all the right things. And again, in our next episode, I'm going to be going through pieces of that template and explaining exactly how I let it guide my trainings and my feedback to my staff to make sure my practice continues to remain fully booked and profitable. Thank you as always for joining. If you have any questions or comments, I love your questions and comments. Please put them in the comment section below. If you have any colleagues that could benefit from this information, please tag or share this with them, and we will see you in the next episode.